Welcome to another Apollo Papyrus podcast episode. I am Aaron Apollo Camp. For this episode, my interview guest is the author of the Cold Winter series of novels, as well as the book The Creatures of Holden Beach. His name is Chris A. Underwood, not to be confused with a different author with the same first and last name, and my interview with Chris will follow the teleportation sound. Chris Underwood, welcome to the Apollo Papyrus podcast.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
As there is more than one author with the first name Chris and the last name Underwood, feel free to introduce yourself to our listeners.
Yeah. So I'm Chris A. Underwood, as I'm put in Amazon now. I think I was the first one, but anyhow, the other guy was a contestant on Survivor, so he has a little bit of a following. But no, my books are a little different than his. I have a series about Niagara Falls power grid going down for an entire winter, and that's the beginning basic storyline.
And my next question is about that series, which is called the Cold Winter series, and you're the author of it, and that series contains 3 novels. Without spoiling too much of your books in the Cold Winter series, what are each of them called? What genre would you classify the series in, and what are each of the novels about?
Okay, the first book gets into it right from the beginning. I jump right in. And let you learn about the characters as they react to what's happening around them, and that is, and these are just basic folks who are going to work, and computer programmer kind of guy, and he finds that the power goes out, and he's a little bit of a prepper, but not enough, and so the story is set in Central Ohio, and it kind of takes into account the exact location of the town. It's in a real town called Galena, which is just a little town outside of Columbus, and it takes into account how close the town is to the freeway, how close to the waterways, things like that. And my folks are trying to be good-natured folks. They're trying to help out people who are showing up on their doorstep that are stranded from the freeways, and come knocking, and they try to do the right thing, even when the right thing doesn't work out sometimes. So the first book is about like the first month of the winter. The second book is about the second 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks. In the second book, they realize there's more going on to the power outage than just the power going out. It's a coup against the country that's occurring. Kind of a Red Dawn kind of storyline. And so they join a local Minuteman militia to fight back. And that militia has a Huey helicopter. And I volunteered with a Huey helicopter group that gives rides at air shows, things like that. So I've gotten some good stories from the pilots and things. And so I kind of use that in the book. And then the third book is where they have their first real battle with their Minuteman militia, and they're tasked to bring back a VIP to safety on the Ohio River. And that's the general gist.
Sorry, keep going.
Okay, that's a general gist of it. Like I said, I try to live my stories. I've volunteered with this air show group, and I've actually gone with them to several of their shows and sold my books at their shows, and it's been kind of cool. And also on the Ohio River, we utilize an old World War II tank transport ship as part of the storyline for bringing back the person to safety. And and that is an actual ship that's on the Ohio River. It's been restored. It's a floating museum, and it still runs under its own power. And I volunteered on it as well. It's in Evansville, Indiana, and so I use I try to use real life experience to try to get the story out there.
Did the extremely harsh winters of the late 1970s in Ohio and elsewhere in the U.S. Midwest and Northeast inspire you to write the Cold Winter series?
It did. I experienced the 70s a little bit. I was a kid, but I got to see it all, and I've seen some rough winters in Ohio, and so actually in the story it's a really rough winter, and you get into kind of some conspiracy theory stories about whether we're really able to modify the weather or not, um, and some of that, I get into a lot of the different conspiracy theory stories, even though I'm not trying to press them upon the reader. Just kind of throw it out there and say maybe that's what's happening, or maybe it's just a really bad winter.
An interesting fact I've learned while researching you is during the writing process for the first novel in the Cold Winter series, you completely rewrote it from a first-person point of view to a third-person point of view. Why did you rewrite your first novel to a different point of view, and how difficult was that to do?
It was tough. I submitted it to a publisher, and that's what the publisher came back to me with. They said that my narrator voice and my first person voice were getting confusing, and they sounded too much alike, and all of that, and so it kind of ticked me off at first, but in the end, I thought it through and let it fester in my head for a bit, for a few months, and then in the meantime, I also was able to, my narrator voice was my conspiracy theory voice of what might be happening, and so instead I created a new character who was a ham radio operator who they listened to on the radio once in a while, and so I turned him into my conspiracy theory voice, and it really made the story more fun. It made it a lot more entertaining. He was very brash and flamboyant, so he became a really fun character. And actually, through the series, he has become a main character. We ended up meeting up with him, and he's in the what do you call the militant group. So it made it into a better story, I believe.
You've also written The Creatures of Holden Beach. Without spoiling too much of that book, what is it about?
That was a fun story that I wrote in between, and it was more of a lark, that because the cold winter kind of gets dark, and so it was good to write something that was fun. And what it is about some guys who have created this lifelike looking alien, and with cameras and microphones inside, and they leave it on the beach for people to find it and catch the reactions, so that they're trying to go viral on the internet. But their whole plan gets messed up because of a murder on the beach the night before, and it just messes up the whole plan. But it turns into a pretty fun little story, kind of an older mystery TV show kind of story, where you have two mysteries going on at the same time. You have your murder and you have your other mystery, and they end up coming together in the end. But it was a really fun story, and I have converted into a screenplay, and that screenplay has gotten some real attention. I've turned it into some contests, and paid a little bit extra to get the feedback, get the written feedback from them, and made some modifications along the way for each contest to make it better and fine tune it. And so then the last one, I'm going to a big conference here later this month, actually, where I got an award for the screenplay. So I've actually gone back in and rewrote the story a little bit. I got a second edition of that book that's coming out actually next week. That has the changes from the screenplay in it. So I'm feeling pretty good about that little story. That's getting some attention.
What inspired you to write The Creatures of Holden Beach?
I was just kind of sitting with an old college buddy on Holden Beach in North Carolina. We're having a cigar, and he just has this, we're out looking at the beach, and we see these, retired ladies out there hunting for shells. And he said, well, he just threw out this idea. What would happen if one of those retired ladies came across an alien washed up on the beach? And that just, sparked a little bit of a conversation, and and it festered in my head for a little while, and it became a pretty cool little story. And actually, I was there on the beach with him to kind of get away from. I was taking care of my father, who was he was terminal with COPD, and so I felt like I needed another storyline like that to kind of get away from what was happening with him, and it was actually very therapeutic for me, and I'm glad I got the story out.
What are the easiest and hardest parts of writing fiction for you?
Oh, the I guess the easiest part is putting myself into the frame of mind of what needs to be written. But I guess the hardest part is setting aside the time and getting things I don't know, prepared for to do some writing. You have to have your space to do it. I kind of follow the Lee Child's methodology of trying to. You have to set up your space and the quiet time and everything else, and prepare to write. And you can't just do it anywhere at any time. It's really just blocking out that time.
Are all of your books self-published, traditionally published, or hybrid published, or did you use a combination of publishing methods for your books?
I have self-published, but as of late, I have picked up a publisher who has been there to help me market the books more so than actually modify them or anything. They've just been there to help me market them and create new covers that are all kind of work together and things like that to get the books out there. So that's really been my method of doing it. But yeah, the publisher that I'm working with is just mainly for marketing. They're not taking a portion of anything. It's just been more of a contract deal, and it's worked out really well for me that way.
Do you plan on, or are you writing more books? And if so, what are some ideas for books that you may or will write in the future?
Well, I'm looking at a fourth book for this for the Cold Winter series. I really had a lot of fun with working with the World War II ship and getting information for that, and the research of it was really a lot of fun. I spent some time on the Ohio River. I spent a whole day at a river lock, watching the whole process of how boats go through the locks and all of that sort of thing. And I had a lot of fun with that. And so I probably will do a fourth book for that. And I'm wanting to include an additional historical ship. So that's what I'm kind of in the search for right now, is finding my next prop for the story. And I think I found it. Up on Lake Erie. But we'll see where that goes. And yeah, I'm even considering a second book to the Creatures of Holden Beach. I'm even considering that a little bit. I had fun with that sheriff that was solving the crime, and he might be solving another crime.
A sad anecdote about your writing work is that your father passed away not long after the first novel in the Cold Winter series was published. Was he able to see your first published book before he passed away?
Yes, he did, and yeah, it was kind of neat for him. It was neat. He wasn't sure what to think about me as a writer, and also just I was kind of a quick learn at math and chess and other things like that when I was a kid. So he didn't really know what to think of me. He was more of a blue collar mechanic guy from the hills, and actually I must say he didn't know how to read or write. So it was a unique situation. It was really unique, and it was great to see it happening. It was just too bad that it was happening while he was dealing with his problems, with his physical problems. So it was too bad it was happening during all that.
My last question for this interview, if you could meet the Dominic the Ham Radio Guy character in real life in person, what topics would you and Dominic talk about?
Well, actually, he was inspired by someone that I had met years and years ago, and I've been trying to track him back down on Facebook to ask to find out some more of what he's currently doing. But yeah, it would be we need to ask him what kind of projects he's working on. I think the thing he was working on was some alternate like a hydrogen powered pickup truck or something. But yeah, it would be neat to see what kind of things he would be getting into and the Huey helicopter flying and all of that sort of thing. I think I may have met a few Dominics actually just through my volunteering with the Huey helicopter groups that I'm in with right now. Yeah. Interesting question.
Chris, thank you for appearing on the Apollo Papyrus podcast. You were an amazing guest.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. It's been fun. It's been fun. I don't know if I've gotten enough out there for your listeners. I hope that I have. Hope that they're interested in what I'm doing a little bit. It's been a fun process writing these books for, especially the Cold Winter series. It's just that and it's like the first one was released in 2017, and the storyline is about, the first beginning premise is that the story is happening right after a presidential election, and then the emergency happens like a month after the election, and it's also that the first woman president had been elected, and that she turns and when the inauguration happens, when she's at their inauguration, she turns to the previous president and says that this is the best person to handle this new situation of the power outage. And so she doesn't become inaugurated, and she allows the previous president to stay president. So it's kind of a weird situation as we're coming into this election that's coming up. Kind of odd. And also in the second book, which was released in the spring of 2019, in that second book, there's a epidemic or a pandemic of a virus that's going around, a man-made virus that is a combination of the flu and smallpox in my story. But yeah, it's been kind of weird that some of the things I've written have kind of close to come true. Kind of bizarre. Hopefully some folks who are listening might have an interest enough to take a look at what the storyline gets into.
It was wonderful to interview Chris, and I'll include relevant links in the text description of this episode. This is Aaron Apollo Camp reminding y'all to find your writing and reading purpose. Bye for now. Copyright 2024, Aaron Apollo Camp, all rights reserved. This podcast episode is intended for the private listening of our audience. Any reuse or retransmission of this episode without the express written consent of the podcast host is prohibited, except under fair use guidelines. Royalty-free music and sound effects obtained from https://www.zapsplat.com.